Welcome to MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers. Each week, we talk with industry leaders in both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing. Right now, we'll hear all about their successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers.
And welcome to this week's episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers, where I am kindly joined by Marko from Entrepreneurial Web Agency. Marko, hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, it's interesting to have a guest on the show who is a marketer, but has a non-technical background, much like myself. And when you talk about a lot of the stuff that you've done it with no coding. You're not a web designer in terms of a technical phrase. You're there to support the customers. And that is very much the kind of background that I have as well. So I once upon a time went to university, hated it, never did anything with my software engineering degree whatsoever, and went into retail. At least you're still in the right industry as to what you started out in. Marko, if you would, just kind of give us a 30-second overview as to how you got started at Entrepreneurial. Why did you end up starting your own agency?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll just go about 20 some years back because I got a computer when I was 6 and the internet, and I had it in my room, and my parents were really open to that. And thanks to that, I think I'm able to be non-technical and do technical stuff, quote unquote, right? But how I got started with Entrepreneurial, I started in marketing, email copywriting, right out of college. Actually, I was trying to get my clients, any clients, during my last year of college. I was able to close some deals doing email marketing and copywriting. There's a whole story there as well on how I got started into that. I bought a course that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but kind of shifting things around. I was doing, wearing all different hats, and I landed on web design because I really liked it. From the moment I was building my own first website to the moment I was, helping a client launch his own and a product and doing all of this sort of stuff. And then just, playing around with it, starting on Upwork, seeing it's kind of, okay, there's some momentum here. I actually like doing this. The, offer is very straightforward. It's only pretty much one offer with some add-ons. It's not super complicated. And that's how I kind of decided and landed on doing that exactly.
That's awesome. And I guess being a young entrepreneur, it kind of gives you that bit of freedom to experiment without having too many worries behind things, right? Like you were able to experiment at an early age before you had all the bills and the home life and everything to worry about, right?
Yeah. So even in high school, first, typical story, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You don't know what to do, but you're a little frustrated with all the 9-to-5 jazz and stuff like that. So I was even trying some, if you remember back in like 2013, there was a big course on Amazon, Kindle Publishing, where you get somebody to write you a book, you publish it, you do something to promote it. And I burned a couple $100 there before giving up. Got back into the kind of the college stage. I was thinking I was going to be a consultant, do an MBA, this and that. And then boom, I saw a course from the guy who I'm not going to name, but he kind of got me back in the game. And just the fact that I paid, I got into credit card debt. I was kind of, okay, I have this much time to succeed. And the fact that I did kind of propelled me to be able to, be in this entrepreneurship game since college and never actually really having a job.
That's interesting because that kind of mirrors something that our guest from last week said. Leanne, when she was on the show, was she set out to create her own business, and she very definitely put in place a timeline of events. Like, I've got this long, and I must make it work within this time frame. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go and find something else to do because this just doesn't work. So maybe that's something that we all kind of have in common, is that even at that young age, there's got to be that focal point. There's got to be that turning point where actually, do you know what, I've given this as much as I can. Does that kind of resonate with you? Is that where you went with it?
Yeah, it really does. And I was like I said, I was supposed to graduate in May, which I did, 2019, and in March I actually landed a client, and I had no jobs lined up, nothing. It was either do or die, and I was able to close 2 clients within like a week from each other, and started making some nice money, and then, it all kind of went from there.
I love it because it just goes to prove that, like, I don't have a traditional sales and marketing background, as a lot of the audience are well aware. And I'm very proud of that because I think it helps me stand out. And it just goes to prove from what you said there that you don't need the courses, you don't need the degree, you need a curiosity an entrepreneurial mindset and the ability to just grab it and make it happen. And I think that actually that skill set there is something that's core to a lot of people that I've spoken to on the show. So it's fantastic to hear that you sharing that. I think something that will probably interest a lot of our audience.
Absolutely.
Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialize in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Bear in mind, we have quite a large small to medium business owner enterprise, is that you don't have that hands-on coding skills, in quote marks, to make it work, which I'd imagine a lot of the audience don't either. So talk us through that. How has that evolved over recent years? Because I know there's a lot of tools out there now that are no code. How powerful can you get and how easy are they to use?
You can get incredibly powerful. You wouldn't believe how many websites are built. Like, I'm talking multi-million-dollar businesses on simple platforms like Shopify, pretty much drag and drop. And then, WordPress as well with Elementor Pro. The fact that I am, not as technically skilled, I would say, and I was kind of wearing a bunch of different hats. I always thought of that as a detriment to my success because I couldn't focus on one single thing. But I think that's what it was leading me to where I am right now, where I can relate to the potential client and explain it to them in a language they can actually understand. Because, a lot of very technical guys, they either get annoyed if you don't get something, or they're a little bit stringent in terms of their way of communication and things like that. Whereas I like to kind of, put the ball down and explain everything nicely so people understand what they're getting themselves into. And when it comes to being powerful with not a lot of technical skill, you can get very, very powerful. Like with AI, stuff's changing rapidly. With stuff like Elementor Pro and WordPress, things are changing rapidly. All you need is that little bit of sense for design and how things should work, and knowing the backends and how to connect them. And then I think you can be very successful.
I like that. It's almost like being a tech whisperer for non-technical people, kind of translating. And I think that is a skill set that a lot of technical people miss. And that's why I think there's a big market, if I'm honest, for not just in the web design space, but in lots of spaces where there's a huge role for those people like yourself who can be that person who's in between the customer and the technical people. Because, hard copy coders tend not to have those interpersonal skills. I'm largely tarring people here and probably shouldn't, but most coders I've met, and I love coders, I can get into that mindset when the mood takes me, but they don't have that ability to tell the story in a way that makes sense to the other side. And likewise, a customer is never, very, very rarely technically minded, and certainly in terms of what they're asking you to do. Hence why they're outsourcing it in the first place, right? Because a lot of them would just do it in-house if they were capable. So I think that's a valuable skill set. And I think it's something that you've got to learn trial and error, right? You're not going to get everything right from day one. So how is it kind of on that ability to convert people then? Because I imagine as a young kid, that's quite a hard skill set to cultivate and develop. What would you say guided you in those early days?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to be in rooms with people who are much older than you, more experienced than you, more, just know everything much better than you. And half the time you don't even know what they're talking about. But if you stick around for long enough, you're going to catch on and you're going to, get at that level quicker. So it's definitely surrounding yourself with those people, finding some partnerships, doing some deals together, things like that. That always helps. What also helps is being on the other side of the table, meaning actually, okay, I need a service. Let me go ahead and, do that whole process of hiring and finding somebody. And then you can kind of see, okay, so that's how it works. If I am finding somebody on Upwork, I either post a job and keep refreshing until I find somebody immediately, and then I just give them the job. Or I post a job, go do something else, come back in 3 days, and then just pick and choose random people. And then, of course, knowing that, I know, okay, so if I'm on Upwork as a freelancer, I should probably get some jobs that are immediately posted and apply to them, or if I should change my approach accordingly. So just one example, but I think that helps a lot. And then, of course, a lot of courses, programs, education. I've spent a lot of money, on a lot of different programs. Some were better, some were worse, but you can get something out of every single one, I believe. And oftentimes what I've found is that just simple books are the best, like $15, $20 books. Those you can't beat.
So to ask a question then, in terms of the web design side of things, we're seeing quite a big proliferation of AI and large language models coming through right now. And I guess every man and their dog thinks that they can be a copywriter because they can just ask AI to write something for them. What's your thoughts on sort of the AI generated side of web design, and is it good to improve, or is it something to stay away from?
It's very interesting because I ran an AI agency with a partner last year for about 6 to 8 months. We ran it. It was like a full service marketing agency. It just wasn't something that I saw myself in, so I stepped down and pursued doing what I've been doing. But it's for me, for what I do, it's amazing. It's one of the best things that ever happened. You're not gonna expect AI to tell it, okay, give me a website, then I spins out a website. Though that's not ready yet. I'm sure it's gonna be. For example, a Mentor Pro, they're introducing a lot of AI backed feature, but the tech stack I use is just ChatGPT 4.0, right? I think it's definitely one of the best. It has its own flaws and advantages, but you can build custom GPTs, etc. And I could get into the whole spiel. But I think one of the main things, for example, with copywriters is, you can't be a copywriter and just use AI and rely on it, because most likely you don't even know how to use AI. Like, I have big conversations with AI. I just prompt it like crazy until I get what I want, right? And most people don't. They just, buy a, I don't know, 100 prompts pack, and then it's like a simple sentence that asks it something, and it's just not good enough, right? So if you're a copywriter, it can save you a lot of time with brainstorming and stuff like that. If you're in web design and web development, you can also save you a lot of time, especially in the UI UX front and conversion rate optimization front, because you can talk to AI, get it to learn the business, upload documents and things like that, get it to, kind of have everything, and then ask it the right questions to help you kind of structure everything and build it out accordingly.
I like the ideas behind all of that, and it kind of mirrors a lot of the strategies I see successful people using in that space. With regards to the temptations to kind of just use it to be lazy, I guess. I don't think anybody intends to be lazy, but it's just one more thing that they hopefully can just get off their plate. How much work is involved in becoming a good prompt engineer in that side of things? Like, is it hard to do? How much time would it take for somebody to learn completely fresh?
I don't think it's too hard. I think you just got to be open-minded to it. And to me, it's come very naturally, because I would always like to over-explain things and just give every single possible detail. And what I, started doing is I have a Chrome extension that gives me the ability to voice record. So I just started, I'm not even typing anymore most of the time. I'm just voice recording and talking to it like that. And that's made it even more powerful. But just don't be afraid to give as much detail as you can when explaining something to ChatGPT. Don't be afraid to say thank you, right? I do that a lot, because it's not about taking AI so when it takes over the world, I'm going to be safe. That thing, right, that people make jokes about. It's more about, mirroring yourself as you're, as you're talking to another person, right? That's how you should look at it as, and it's like a superhuman, right, with a huge brain that can do pretty much anything. So I think it can, if you use it right, it can make you super efficient.
I think on that note as well, the idea of thanking the AI is important, because to your point, it's not about thanking the AI, but there is an element of letting the language model know that what its output is what you asked it for, what you really wanted and what you want to see, because then it knows to pay more attention to what it's just done and use that as a basis for building other things out. I know I've started recording my newsletter each week that goes out. I do it on video, transcribe it down, I get AI to analyze it and create the basis of the newsletter. And honestly, now I'm at a point where it's 95% there, that I just have to top and tail some copy at the top and bottom, and it's pretty good in the middle. And that's how it should be. That's where it needs to be for the type of content it is. I guess on that note then, what do you see coming in the coming year or two that's going to really transform the industry that you're in? What's next for web design?
It's hard to say. I would say it's not as a progressive industry as a lot of people think when it comes to change. I get very surprised by talking to people. They don't really know what a domain is, and I guess that's going to stay that way. So being able to understand that some people just don't speak the language, right, that you're speaking to, that you're selling to, is very important, and a lot of them don't even want to do it, right? It's like if I try to do gardening, like I'm sure I'd be having a lot of dumb questions, and anybody who knows anything about it would be kind of like, oh, okay, that's what's up. So it's kind of like the same similar thing. But the way I see it move is it's definitely gonna enhance in terms of it's gonna help me be more productive. I don't think it's gonna fully replace anything yet, not for the time being. And even when it does, just like with copywriters, if you use it, you're gonna be able to do everything faster, and better. So instead of thinking about, oh yeah, it's gonna take my job, why don't you just jump on it, adapt it as much as you can? Instead of being able to build, I don't know, 5 websites a week, you're gonna be able to build 10, 20. And you're going to be able to train your team, and everything is going to be super efficient. And that's when I think sales is going to come in, because then are you going to be able to, with all this productivity, is the sales volume going to be enough to supply that, right? So as fast as that's growing, the sales aspect of it, I think, is becoming more humanized, in a sense where if you send somebody a postcard, they're probably more likely to, take some action as opposed to an email. So I believe we're going backwards in that regard while we're going forward with that regard. And it's similar to, I saw a meme on Instagram that says, I wanted, me to do the creative stuff and AI to do the laundry and dishes, whereas AI is doing the creative stuff and now I'm doing the laundry and the dishes.
Yeah, I think I've seen a similar version of the same meme. So yeah, we're in real danger point if you're not putting enough human effort into your work and sitting back and doing the stuff that humans do best. You are in the danger of being replaced, because why wouldn't somebody replace that element of just ticking a box? One of the things that
I think people, I just came up with this idea now. I think people think AI is going to replace you, but it's most likely going to be people who use AI better than you are going to replace you. So I think that's a quote unquote misconception too, where if AI was that, this is just me skeptically speaking and thinking about it. Everybody can tell AI, hey, AI, go build me $1 million business a year with 95% profit margins and just, go for it, right? Which is most likely not going to happen.
Well, I mean, if you rewind back 20, 30 years, the rumor was that this desktop PC that I'm currently sat facing was going to replace me doing my job, and it still hasn't done that. And in fact, I've got another laptop over here, and I've got an iPad, and I've got a phone, and none of them have replaced what I do. So like, I'm, move with the times, lean into it, I guess, is where we're going with things. Quick question on your thoughts around how AI makes us more efficient, though. So for you, when AI makes you more efficient, is it more about getting that time back so you can be spending time with family and relaxing, or is it about making you more efficient at your job so that you can spend more time on the things that really you want to be spending time on within the business? What's the balance for you?
Yeah, so it's totally personal the way you decide to do it, right? I'm sure people are gonna, they're somewhat content with the way they live and they enjoy it. They're gonna use AI to get the job done and just be over with. And it's kind of like people, or you got the other side of the spectrum where people, like you said, okay, I use AI to, get this stuff out of the way. Now let me focus on the, the important stuff. I would categorize myself more in that second bucket. And of course, it's very seasonal, right? When December comes, I definitely want to be in that first bucket. But, for example, now and everything's kind of going and blooming, I definitely want to use AI to get the stuff out of the way that would take me 20 hours. Now it takes me 4. And then so I can focus on the other stuff. And most of that other stuff is probably going to be sales and business development and creating content and things like that. I think that's the future. That's something I'm definitely getting into more and more. I'm creating a plan now. I'm getting married in about like 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm not going to start yet because I know that's going to move things around.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But that's definitely in the works.
That's fantastic news, Marko. Thanks for sharing that with the show, to be fair. Given that knowledge that you have, and admittedly non-coding, non-technical, and I think there's a lot of people out there that have that same skill set as you now, Marko. So like we're seeing an era come through where coding isn't necessary anymore. So why would we even want to learn coding? Because it's not, computer can do that side of things really well for us. What it can't do is the logic and reasoning and translation and thinking and humanizing and emotion side of things, which is kind of where you sit in the middle. So given that kind of knowledge and thinking about our audience that are out there, the small to medium business owners, what's the balance, would you say, between creating a visually appealing website and helping them create one that actually converts? What's more important, and what are some of the tricks that you've seen for creating a website that converts really well?
So it's oftentimes going to be about what the business is. So if you go back to like the era of ClickFunnels, you're going to see a lot of bad looking boxy websites that convert like crazy with like the red ribbons and stuff, and buy now, this and that. And then you're gonna have businesses like some, for example, investment holding company that just focuses on acquiring other businesses that just needs to look professional. And I call those websites like a fancy business card, that website, where if somebody looks you up, they want to make sure you're legit. Just recently, we had a project with a company that does commercial property maintenance. I'm not going to name the company, but the problem they had is they have contracts with some of the biggest companies in the US, and they don't have a website. And the problem is they're only like 4 or 5 states, and those companies want them to go to all 50 states. And they needed a website to be able to actually get people to work for them so they can scale. Because, who would, you go on Indeed and the company doesn't have a website, it looks, it doesn't look legit. So on that side of things, yeah, for them, conversion wasn't really important. It was more of that fancy business thing. For, more conversion oriented websites, looks aren't as important, but I always say, why not have both?
That's good. Like, and it's interesting to hear that you can find that balance, because a lot of people believe it's one or the other, and you've kind of got to go down. And most clients, I think, in our head, before we come to a web design agency, we don't know what we want, but we know it needs to look beautiful, and there's never really, because we don't have that technical background.
You don't even know what to expect or what to want or how much it's gonna cost. Yeah, but I always say, if you want both, just look at Apple.com, one of the most beautiful websites ever, and I'm sure it does its job in converting. It's not just of course it's the whole marketing behind it, et cetera, but it's a very good example.
Perfect. So to come back to the questions that I tend to ask every guest that comes on the show, then, Marko, what's one thing that you wish business owners out there would just stop doing with their marketing? It could be, anything from myths and frameworks that just don't work to tools and anything that you can really put your finger on. What's the thing that really gets you on your soapbox?
Oh, I wouldn't call out any specific method because they can all work. It's probably just the way that you do something. And one of those most prominent examples, I would say, of a booming industry in terms of business development is definitely cold email. It's been, and I've dabbled myself in it a lot, and it's just not knowing your audience when you reach out via cold email, or being too aggressive, or just not having good copy, or doing your good enough research to know what it is. So I think it's oftentimes those small little mistakes that cost people a lot, like missing somebody's name, or just not paying extra attention to those small little details. And a lot of people are very ego driven, and if you miss their name, they get angry. And myself, I've finally come to peace with it, that people are gonna spell my name with a C instead of a K, and I'm totally good with that. But I know some people aren't.
I like that. It's very human in response. And yeah, from experience, I know quite a lot of people that are involved in the email game as well. And I do think there's a misconception in startup businesses, particularly around SaaS, that anybody can be good at email sales. It's not true. I think there's a niche of people who are very naturally good at it and don't need that experience. But for everybody else, there's a whole process that goes on that you just aren't aware of, from technical domain setup to copywriting to lead list building. And you can try and piece all those together, but it's really, really hard to do unless you've done it successfully before. That on its head then, what is one thing that you wish more businesses would start doing, Marko? What do you see them missing out on that they could be getting some really easy wins with?
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like Alex Ramosi now, but it's probably content. And I say that because I'm guilty of it as well, of not doing it, right? And it's definitely something I'm looking to change as well. And I encourage every business to do as well. Because, when you think about like the entertainment industry and the whole thing, what real value is it bringing to the world? It's, you could argue with the point, but nonetheless, people's attention is what's very monetizable nowadays. And you can see the evidence of that wherever you turn your head. So content and fighting for that piece of pie is definitely something every business should do. And especially the more offline the businesses, quote unquote, like if you're doing, I don't know, plumbing or something like that, something that's going to probably stay with us forever and it's not AI disrupted, you can have a lot of success because it's a blue ocean.
Love it. Thank you very much for your thoughts on the show, Marko. Really appreciate your time for coming along. And if the audience have any questions, if they want to reach out and ask you something specific, or they want to reach out to Ventnor, how can they reach you? What are the best contact methods?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on as well. I'd say the best way to do it is through ventnorwebagency.com. You have all the contact details there. You can scroll down to the footer. You can book a free web development consultation call if you're interested in doing a website or redoing your current one. And of course, LinkedIn, I'm open to all connections and would definitely like to connect with anybody who has any questions or needs any help.
Perfect. And I'll make sure those details are on the bottom of the podcast notes as well for anybody who's watching. To the audience who's come along and watched the episode, thank you very much for your continued support. And as ever, if you've got any ideas for guests, any topics you want us to cover, feel free, reach out. It's paul@javelincontent.com. I'd love to hear from you about anything you want to see on the show. Thanks for your time, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. The contact details are in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. Your host today was Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Javelin specializes in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away, and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximize your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next week for the next episode, and don't forget to give us a subscribe and a review. Our podcast is only possible with your support.